I build on what George said, basically 3 points. 1, set a bit the policy context on radicalization in the EU. 2, talk a little bit about radicalization and foreign fighters and what does the phenomenon look like today, how it's different from the past. And then 3, I will mention 6 policy challenges that we have at the moment that we try to tackle. And hopefully a lot of what you will do can feed into all this. Radicalization has been part of the EU strategy for counterterrorism from the beginning. So we've never taken a security-only approach, but radicalization was always one of the 4 areas that were there. And Gilles de Kerkhoff, the counterterrorism coordinator who I work for, always says that's the most difficult one. It's the most difficult one to figure out. We are still learning. Nobody has a silver bullet. So we have progressed a lot, and you've heard quite a bit, but we are not fully there yet. The EU is supporting the member states in counterterrorism, so we can support with funding, with policy, development of policy, sharing of good practices, helping member states put in place a project with experts that can come from all of Europe, and also sharing of lessons learned and what hasn't worked. After the Charlie Hebdo attacks, you could really see a huge political push for EU getting more active on security, on counterterrorism, on prevention of radicalization. What's very interesting is that heads of state and government, after the Charlie Hebdo, made a statement which is kind of the blueprint for our efforts on counterterrorism. And they said that the actions should focus on 3 baskets. First one, security, border security, we all know this. Second one, and this is what you're interested here, is prevention of radicalization and safeguarding of values. And within that, what did they talk about? They talked about internet, removal of content and counter messaging. They talked about communication strategies, non-discrimination, tolerance, interfaith, and community dialogue. Very interesting. And they also talked about initiatives regarding to education, social policy, rehabilitation. So you see that they go much broader than specific radicalization action in the narrow sense, but also look at policies that are positive as such, that shouldn't be labeled counterterrorism, but that can make a positive contribution. And that was very new, and that was very good. And that's something that my boss also pushes a lot to happen, and the Commission has started to mobilize all these soft policies, and that's an area where it can be very strong in the future. And since then, the policy focus on counterterrorism and prevention of radicalization has even been stronger. President Juncker launched the Security Union. A commissioner has been appointed for the Security Union, Commissioner King, which means he specifically has a task force now in the Commission on terrorism, prevention of radicalization, and he reports every month, and you can read this, it's public, on the progress that has been made. So the political focus on all this, I've been in the business for 6 years, it has totally changed, now everybody is on it, and things are moving forward extremely quickly. My boss did a report for the last council on the progress we achieved over the last couple of months. When we look at 1 year ago, the Paris attacks and what we have achieved until today, it's amazing. We've progressed on so many fronts. I'm not saying we are there yet on all of it, but you can't compare. We've done legislation, we've built a whole counterterrorism center at Europol, lots and lots and lots has been going on, but in other fields also than radicalization. Now, second point, what does radicalization look like today and in how far it's different? The one phenomenon that's really dangerous and that we have worked on for a couple of years, even before Charlie Hebdo, it's the phenomenon of foreign fighters, of these young people from Europe that travel to Syria and Iraq to fight and that then return. You probably know that in the attacks in Paris, in Brussels, quite some of the people involved have been returnees from Syria, from Iraq, which means there they have jihadi network across the world. They get a very low threshold to violence. They get terrorists trained. They have these training centers there where they learn how to shoot, where they learn how to deal with all these scenarios. So that's what makes these people so dangerous. And when you look at the cell, for example, in Brussels, they had people from different countries and nationalities that had been in Syria together. So that's one of the dangerous points, and we could say, yeah, but we had foreign fighters before, they went to Somalia, they went to Afghanistan, yes, but it has never been at this scale, never, ever. And, but what's happening now is that the flow of these foreign fighters to Syria and Iraq, it has decreased a lot, and it's really not as it was before. But what Daesh is doing is that they try to motivate young people or people to, if they can't travel to Syria and Iraq, then to commit attacks at home. And that's also what we've been seeing, people who, like a couple of attacks over the summer, who have not traveled, but get radicalized. Sometimes they are in touch with people in Syria, sometimes not, but that's also a phenomenon which is very, very difficult to control, especially also when they are by themselves on the internet. What's also the case, in the past it took often a long time to radicalize. Now it can be whatever, over a weekend, and off they went to Syria. So also that phenomenon has really changed. And George already touched on this. One of the big, let's say, vectors is the internet, is Daesh being so good with the social media. They have a volume which is amazing. Like after the Brussels attack, they had around 100,000 tweets in the next couple of hours, which just shows the professional machine. They have short videos featuring people from all the different countries for their audiences, Hollywood quality. That's totally different. Al-Qaeda had these old, guys sit there, talk for an hour about all these topics. Nobody wants to watch this. The Daesh videos, they are kind of, a mainstream, cool things for young people. So that makes them so attractive, and they're done very professionally. But also we shouldn't forget Al-Qaeda. They are still there, they're still dangerous, they're still also in Syria. So radicalization is different today than it was, but it's still there. Now, on the priorities, what is it that we are working on? What is it that maybe you can also help us with to figure out? First one, internet. Two questions here related to radicalization. One, how do we remove all this material? And two, how do we put other narratives out there so that young people Googling Daesh, maybe they find also some other material discouraging them to go. What we've done in the EU is create a unit at Europol that would flag to companies terrorist material, and then the companies have terms of reference and they would take down these materials. They have created partnerships, they have built this up. It's successful in the sense that it has 92% success rate, so all that's very good. But it's kind of a drop in the ocean. They have removed 15,000 content over almost a year and a half that they are up and running. But I just mentioned the amount that Daesh had just on one day after the Brussels attack. So you cannot win it like that. So the one question is, and some think tanks, researchers are working on that, is there a possibility for more automated detection? And that's a question I want to put out there. Big data, a lot can be done with that. Why not in this area as well? And then the second point is the counter messaging. And there, as George had said, the Commission will support civil society to do that better. So that's very good. And all this is being discussed with the companies in the forum. Second, strategic communications. There, the United Kingdom was very advanced. They had a special unit working on this. And the Commission facilitates that these people help member states, other interested member states, to also do their own communications, either do their own communications or help civil society to do counter-narrative, to communicate. That's a very successful project in the sense that they have helped more than half of the member states on their request. And they also created a network among member states where they discuss these challenges and how to deal with it, and even also, right-wing extremism, identity against the refugees, etc. So that's the second challenge. Third challenge, frontline officials, you already mentioned it, the practitioners on the ground. We are talking at the stratospheric level, but how do you get those guys together? How can they brainstorm and learn from each other? And how does that feed back into the policy context? And there, it's really great what the Commission put up, this awareness network, where they have different working groups on internet, on youth, on prisons, where they discuss all this stuff. So that's good. That's happening. Challenge 4, rehabilitation. You need that for the returnees in particular, because, I mean, let's face it, 5,000 people, I mean, lots of them died, okay, but still there are a lot of them left. You cannot put all of them in prison, because in prison they will radicalize. I mean, that's also a big issue, radicalization in prison. But then also you don't have evidence for everybody. So you need alternatives, either for youngsters that are minors, or for people you cannot convict, or for people who have just, had a minor role and want to disengage, etc. But member states are at the very beginning to develop these programs. France is doing it. Denmark had something very interesting. So, and the Commission can help member states to set these up. And that's also a real challenge where it would be interesting to have some input and quickly to learn more about that. And then fifth challenge, the soft. What I mentioned, these education and these other policies. One program that the Commission is launching, something we have promoted a lot, is a virtual exchange initiative. So kids here in Brussels could be connected to kids in Cairo and do a class together for a couple of months. Research shows that this changes your mindset on tolerance, on understanding the other. Apparently it's amazing results. The Commission is setting this up. And this will be a huge opportunity for the young kids to learn more about the Muslim world and hear and do that together. The Commission has, Commissioner Navracic, very active on this, wants to mainstream it into the programs that he has, into the financing, critical thinking skills, inclusion. But this is now starting. So this now has to be filled with life. The Council says, yes, we want to do this. But now also member states have to apply. Also on social fund, there's a lot of money. But it's the member states having to present projects, and then it will go ahead. One major challenge on the soft, also the integration of the refugees. Georges mentioned it, the right-wing radicalization that you have, if that is not tackled well. So how do our societies do that? And then, but I don't have time now, so I won't go into it. The whole topic of Islam is interfaith dialogue with the refugees also. It's a topic for the citizens. So that's also something that, it's important to have these dialogues and to deal with that. And the last point, externally, when we work with third countries, because that was the third basket that the heads of state and government said we should do, it's helping the countries in North Africa and the Balkans, Turkey with counterterrorism and developing partnerships. And a lot of these countries have very security-focused approach. So for them, prevention of radicalization is killing the terrorists. So in that sense, now I'm a bit strong, but in a way it's true. So what we are trying to do is to have a strategic approach with them and try them to have a policy which involves all the ministry and also start doing prevention of radicalization. And that's really what we are trying to do. And it also takes courage from the EU side, and also it takes training. So we've trained people in delegations to know what is it, prevention of radicalization. How can they mainstream that into general projects? For example, if they have a vocational training program, why not put the money on the areas where most people radicalize in that country? You can do that. How to set up radicalization projects. We have one interesting one with UNICRI, which supports local civil society that does good work, but then builds in a mechanism of learning. Because we can't only fund projects of which we know it will succeed, because we're still also in the learning stage. So we have to experiment, we have to learn the lessons, and then move forward. Thank you.